Welcome to what we hope is going to be a very, very thought-provoking and inspiring event over the course of the next 2 days. The ISM is delighted to have so many people with us. Over 800 people have signed on for the event, and we're absolutely delighted about that. As everybody knows, I think it has been a very, very strange 9 months. The ISM has been going since 1882, and we've supported musicians through 2 world wars, the Depression, numerous governments, and changing musical tastes. But never have we been in a situation where musicians are being prevented from performing. I think you probably have to go back to the plague in the 17th century to find enforced theatre closures going on. And musicians have been prevented from working in concert halls, in local music venues, in churches, and even performing at weddings. So it has been a really tough time. So many musicians have not been able to work much, if at all, since March. And for others, they've had to find new ways of working, possibly doing Zoom teaching, using technology in ways that they've never thought of before. And I'd just like to say a big thank you to Oliver Dowden and Rishi Sunak for inspiring this conference, really. It was when there was that big debate as to whether the Chancellor had said that musicians were or were not viable, followed by, I don't know if you remember it, but the Fatima advert encouraging ballet dancers to take up a career in cybersecurity. And I think that really hit home. Suddenly we realized that actually our government just doesn't get the arts. It just doesn't get music and musicians and the extraordinary contribution that the sector makes to the country, right across the whole of the United Kingdom, wherever musicians can be found. And it's not just about GDP, it's also about the contribution music and musicians make to things like mental health, regeneration, our cities, all kinds of aspects. So we felt it was time that we brought the whole of the music community together and to share the experiences and the learning that has gone on over the last 9 months, which has been so tough for so many people. And I think one of the things that we're also aware through the lobbying work that we've been doing, and we've been doing a huge amount of work to try and encourage the government to support musicians, particularly freelance musicians who are not able to work through the self-employed scheme. Some of that scheme is okay, but a lot of it we know is not as good as it should be. And we've seen other countries like Germany, all the Scandinavian countries and New Zealand really look after their music sector. And in the run-up to Brexit, we're also painfully aware that the government is very focused on fishing, which is worth a quarter of the music sector. It's worth, I think, about £1.4 billion, and music is worth close on £6 billion. So as a sector, I think it is absolutely imperative that we come together and that we really advocate strongly for the extraordinary contribution musicians and music make. And that goes right back to the dawn of time, if you like. I mean, Plato, who we all remember, fantastic philosopher, said that music actually is a moral law, and it contributes extraordinary things to all of us in so many different ways, which I can only echo. So over the next 2 days, we've got a fantastic lineup, both thought-provoking and informative panels. We will be hearing from performers, people who work in venues, who have had a really tough time trying to keep the venues going in some shape or form. We will be hearing from people who know all about tech. We're also going to be investigating the impact that COVID has had on diversity, and that is particularly important given that this is been a huge year for Black Lives Matter, and the whole issue of diversity has really come to the fore. And certainly in music, we've had to ask ourselves some really big questions as to how the industry works when it comes to people from non-white backgrounds. And I think that is an issue that the ISM is very, very much aware of. And also, of course, the issue of women. What has happened to women who often are the carers? So we're going to be looking in some detail at the impact of COVID on diversity within our sector. And then, of course, there are all the things that you need to know as a musician. So it's not just about how do you get the right notes out and what sound do they make. It's also about things like marketing and making sure that you really know how to use your social media. It's also about making sure you understand about contracts so that you don't get ripped off and exploited. And that's incredibly important. The ISM legal team usually gets through about 1,000 legal cases a year. And this year, because of the huge impact of COVID, we are already at, as we come to the end of the year, at close on 2,000 cases. So what can you do to protect yourselves so that you don't get exploited? And then we will be hearing from a member of the ISM team on Brexit. We are keeping all of our fingers and toes crossed to try and get a free trade agreement. That is so important so that musicians can, after the end of December, move backwards and forwards across Europe and earn their crust of bread performing in Europe. But at the moment, it's not looking brilliant, I have to say. There are lots and lots of technical difficulties like carnets and CITES, which need to get unraveled so that musicians don't have the double whammy of COVID followed by a really harsh Brexit. So lots to think about, but we also have some wonderful keynote speakers. We've got Dr. Annetts Collins, who will be kicking off the conference, and also Dr. Kadetu Kani-Mason, and two wonderful in conversations with David Lammy, MP, and Roderick Williams, OBE. And throughout the conference, we will have pre-recorded music and live music, because we think it's really important that since this is all about music, we hear some music. So do hopefully enjoy that music too. To get you started, I just want to introduce you to our question and answer platform. It's called Slido. And Slido is a way of asking questions, comments, all those kind of interactive things which are so important to making the conference a great event. So please do use Slido. We're just going to have a little go with it now. And I'd like to ask you, where in the world are you watching from? So where in the world are you watching from? So just answer on Slido, and then we'll let you know the results of that a bit later on. And then one more question, and this is actually quite an important question for our campaigning. So on a scale of 1 to 5, what impact has the COVID lockdowns had on your work? So on a scale of 1 to 5, what impact has the COVID lockdowns had on your work? 1 is very negative, and 5, and I don't know if there's anybody out there like this, 5 is very positive. So let us know where you are between 1 and 5. Do use the hashtag #empoweredmusician because we want to hear your comments. Use Instagram. Make sure that you also come to our lunchtime event at 1:15 today, when you can hear more about the ISM from Sam. And the joining link is at the bottom of the page on your program. So lots to get involved in over the next couple of days. And as I said, we really, really do want to hear from you. So I now just want to introduce the first keynote speaker, who is Dr. Annetts Collins, who is an award-winning educator, author, and researcher in music education and brain development. So that's a big subject. She has interviewed over 100 neuromusical researchers in Canada, USA, Scandinavia, and Europe, and is a TEDx speaker and TED-Ed writer. So she's going to kick us off with lots of big thoughts this morning. So over to you, Dr. Anita Collins. Thank you.